AM 1260 KLYC, I'm Dave Adams, and once again we're giving you an opportunity to hear from the candidates. Of course, the vote-by-mail ballots are going to be going out very soon, and we do ask that you vote. We as a radio station aren't going to tell you how to vote, but boy, here in the United States, you just have to realize that there are people who have fought and died, and there are people that are dying right now across the world in places where they would love to be able to vote for who's in authority in their government. They don't have that right. We have that right here in the United States, and we need to exercise it. So please, please vote in the May primary, vote in the November election. We need to know who you want to represent us. And the question we are asking is, who do you want to represent us for a circuit court judge representing the Yamhill County area? Ladd Wiles is in our studios right now. Ladd, welcome to the KLYC microphone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dave.
So why are you running for circuit court judge?
It's been a long goal of mine. I'm committed to the justice system, and I'm committed to the community. I know the circuit court judge is an important position. I've had an eye on it for a while. It's been a career objective of mine to be a judge, and I know at this point in my career, I've been practicing law for around 18 years, that I have the experience and the knowledge, the work ethic, and the temperament to be a good circuit court judge.
What will it take to have a good circuit court judge? What are the criteria? If you were filling the position and you had to make that decision, what would you be looking for in a good judge?
Well, I think first of all, the judge has to want to be a judge. It's important to be motivated to do the job and do it well. It's a hard job. It takes a lot of work, and the judge has to be dedicated to that position. And the judge just can't be dedicated to the position. The judge has to know what they're doing and have the experience to do the job well. And I have the dedication and the experience to handle the position.
Tell us a little bit about Ladd Wiles, the man. You know, what are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? Where do you live? Give us an idea about who you are.
Sure. I'm a lifelong Oregonian. I was born in Salem and grew up going to schools in the Salem area. Went to Sprague High School. I graduated high school in the Eugene area. My parents moved and graduated out of Churchill High School in Eugene. I went to the University of Oregon for my undergraduate degree, which I got a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. After my undergraduate stint, I went up and continued my education at Lewis and Clark College, the Northwestern School of Law there, where I got my law degree. Throughout high school and in college, I was an active member of the forensics team, the speech and debate team. I did that for 4 years in high school, and I did it all 4 years at the college level. In fact, after my college career, I went on to teach at the Lewis and Clark Undergraduate School. I was an assistant professor up there, where I was also the coach of the debate team, and we had great success. I had personal success as a debater in high school and in college, and my team that I coached up at Lewis and Clark also had a tremendous success. After I finished my law degree and was looking for work, I hung out my shingle in the Coos Bay area, opened up a small private practice. I wasn't involved with that too long before the district attorney in Coos County approached me and offered me a job. Then started prosecuting. I was in Coos Bay as a prosecutor for around 4 years. And after that, I took a job in the Wilsonville area. I worked at a company called Maricom Corporation, doing in-house work for them on land use issues, property and contracts, commercial leases and whatnot. And frankly, that was kind of a dull legal job, no courtroom experience. And with my background in speech and debate and my experience as a prosecutor, I was really anxious to get back into the courtroom, and so I ended up going back to prosecution. I went back to Polk County first, where I stayed for about a year, and then I came to Yamhill County, where I've been a deputy district attorney for 11 years. And I've handled all kinds of cases here at Yamhill County, misdemeanor DUI, all the way up to and including murder, and I've also done a lot of other prosecution-related courtroom activities, juvenile delinquency cases, juvenile dependency cases, civil commitments, child support enforcement, and other types of legal appearances that are not just pigeonholed into the criminal prosecution. But that's my work experience. I now live in Yamhill County. I live here in McMinnville with my wife, Amanda Marshall, and we have 3 boys who are school age, and they go to school in the Yamhill County area.
Why vote for Ladd Wiles instead of your opponent?
Well, you should vote for Ladd Wiles because I've got the experience to do the job and do it well. For me, I was not hesitant about denouncing my candidacy. As I said earlier, this is something that I've had my eye on for a while. Judge Tishner's retirement was not a big secret. It's foreseeable, and I think anyone who was interested in becoming a judge would know that. I certainly was aware of it, and I knew right away that it was something that I would want to do. So, I didn't wait till the last second or have any hesitation about announcing my candidacy. In fact, I was down at the Secretary of State's office the first day that you could file for the position with my paperwork in hand, getting my name out there, letting people know that I'm serious about this position and I'm the right person for the job.
For those who may not be aware of it, what does a circuit court judge do? You're standing at the bench. People might think that a judge just shows up, puts the robe on, goes up there, listens to 2 guys fight about something, and then makes a decision and goes home. There's a lot of work to it.
There is a lot of work to it, and actually listening to 2 guys fight about it, and it's kind of, it's not wrong. That's part of what the judge does. Circuit court is a court of general jurisdiction, and that means they can hear all kinds of different cases. Litigants can be in criminal or civil capacities. They can be arguing about money or fighting about money, as you might put it, or it can be in the criminal realm where someone's being charged with a crime and the state's prosecuting the case, looking for accountability, and the defense is trying to defend the best they can the defendant's rights. The judge has to make the decisions in all of those cases, even the domestic relations or juvenile cases about how to divide assets, how to award money, how to sentence a person who's committed a crime, and how to ultimately, in all cases, what the judge has to do is reach a fair and just resolution according to the law that applies to the case.
So, Ladd, a question I have is, if you are listening to a case as a judge, how do you keep your personal bias or personal opinions from influencing your decision as a judge? That's kind of hard to do. How do you do it?
Well, bias or prejudice has no place in the courtroom, and as a prosecutor, I try to analyze cases without bias or prejudice and put it aside. The rule of law is what dictates what I do now as a prosecutor, aside from any sort of personal interest or feelings I might have. So I think it's easy to translate that to being a judge and giving both parties equal opportunity to present their cases and remain fair and impartial, entertaining both sides of the story and rendering a fair decision. Bias isn't part of it, but the law is the law, and in reaching a decision, the law may agree with my personal opinion, it may not, but I have to follow the law, and that's what a judge does.
18 years as an attorney, you've seen a lot of changes in the legal system, haven't you?
Seems like the law changes every couple of years. There's always mixing it up from Salem.
What changes about it? Is it the technical, the court proceedings, the technical part of it, or the law itself, and how have you seen it change in the last 18 years?
Mainly what I've seen change has to do with the Court of Appeals. They make rulings that affect how we analyze cases, and it usually has to do with what is admissible evidence or what sort of testimony is permitted and to what extent is it allowable. But we also see changes from Salem, from the legislature. They change the laws quite a bit. They add new crimes and they take away some crimes. For instance, the marijuana legislation recently has really changed from the way it used to be to where it is now, and as a person who deals with prosecutions, we have to adapt our mindset to fit the new law and work within the new law. Like I said, there's new crimes that are created. There's new case law that kind of dictates how we do our business, and it's just part of being a lawyer. And I think it's also part of being a judge, is to keep up on the law, and it's a constant learning process. As an attorney, I'm always learning by studying the law and paying attention to the changes in the law, and that doesn't change when I'm judge. The judge also has to be aware of the changes in the law and what's new in the law and how the law is supposed to be applied according to people in Salem.
If you ever have a situation where state law conflicts with federal law, and I'm sure you've seen this, we've had this discussion when we talk about the medical marijuana dispensaries, where there seems to be some conflicts between state and federal law. If you have, maybe in this case or in other cases, where you have contradictions between state and federal law, which way do you go? How do you get through that? I mean, how do you make the decision?
Well, it really depends on the case, and I can't really speak to the marijuana situation right now. I understand the federal system has their rules and the state system has their rules, but the federal system has issued some opinions about the applicability of their rules in the state side of things. But there's other areas beyond marijuana where the state court judges need to pay particular attention, because there are certain constitutional rights that are federally mandated that are applicable, and we have to be aware of, for instance, search and seizure issues under the Fourth Amendment that may be federally required, and I certainly wouldn't want to be, as a judge, making rulings that violate anyone's constitutional rights.
What are the challenges coming forward in the future in circuit court as you're looking at being a judge? You've been in the courtroom for 18 years, and you've seen trends develop. What are the challenges in the future?
Well, I think it's an exciting time for circuit court right now, in particular in the criminal side of things. And what's exciting about it is we're on the cusp of a sort of a reformation on how we view sentencing. The drive or the push is to do smarter sentencing, or sentencing of criminals with studies that are designed to show us what is best to reduce recidivism and promote offender reformation. There's a push to reduce our use of prison beds for drug and property crimes, and to promote the programs that will better help reintegrate offenders into our community so they won't offend again. And that's exciting because it's sort of forcing us to reanalyze how we may have done sentencing in the past through a lens of different criteria. And it's a new concept which Yamhill County was on the front end of a couple years ago with the evidence-based decision-making initiative, where they promote this concept, and now I think Salem has agreed that that's the right approach, in particular as it pertains to saving taxpayer money on prison space. And the question is, how are we going to work within that framework from the circuit court level? And judges are going to be looking to promote offender reformation and looking to see if the programs are out there that the evidence says is what's needed to meet the ultimate objective. And I think the judge has a critical role to play in deciding where to sentence the offenders. Are they going to go to a prison bed, or are they going to go to maybe a treatment bed, depending on what's out there? So I think it's an exciting time to be a judge, to work within what is a changing framework on sentencing.
A lot of things that are changing with sentences. Evidence-based decision-making as far as evidence-based sentencing. Does that add a new wrinkle, or is that basically what you've been doing all along?
That's the new wrinkle that I'm talking about, is the evidence-based decision-making, and we like to think in this as people who are in court on criminal cases doing sentencings on a regular basis, that we're always trying to do the right thing. We're always trying to hold offenders accountable and keep the community safe. And what the evidence-based decision-making is saying is, here are programs, here are some tools that you should be considering that will help you do your job. And so I'd like to say that I think we've been doing the right thing all along, but now we're receiving new information, and in particular on pretrial release and treatment programs, that cause us to step back and reanalyze how we've been doing things, and maybe it'll produce better results.
What about minimum sentencing guidelines? That's quite a discussion. We could probably talk for quite a while on that. But there are those that argue that the minimum sentencing guidelines take a lot of discretion away from the judge. How do you feel about those?
That's true, the mandatory minimum sentencing. Now, there are occasions when the mandatory minimums do remove discretion from the judges, and those cases are for very serious criminal offenses. For instance, there's, I think, murder, rape in the first degree, and a couple others of the most heinous of crimes that we have on our statutes are the ones for which the judge's discretion is removed. There are other cases, and in most cases where there is a mandatory minimum, there are ways that a judge can opt out or circumvent or make findings that would justify something other than the prescribed minimum sentence. So while it's true that the mandatory minimums do remove judicial discretion, there are some safety valves built into the statutory scheme that afford judges some latitude. And also the process by which those cases come before the judge give us some checks on the removal of discretion. And what I mean by that is the judge is in a position to encourage parties to settle a case or to negotiate a case and maybe bridge the parties to what is a fair and just result. And a judge can conduct these settlement conferences and encourage maybe a non-mandatory minimum resolution. So while it's true, and I understand there are some judges that are very frustrated with the idea that their discretion be removed, I think with the system we have, and we have to work within it, and I think there are ways to work within it where it's less of a problem than you might think.
Do you favor mandatory minimum sentencing?
I think there's a place for mandatory minimums. It gives some certainty to sentences, which is important for crime victims. And like I said, it's for the most serious of offenses. And it's good to know, I think, if you're a crime victim, that when an offender has committed, let's say, the crime of murder, that there's a mandatory minimum 300-month sentence there that they're going to get. And so, yeah, I think there's a place for mandatory minimums.
Alrighty. Society is changing, has changed. You've been in the courtroom for 18 years. We're talking to Ladd Wiles, who's running for Circuit Court Judge in Yamhill County. How have you seen society change? Are we seeing more violent crimes? Are we seeing more forgery crimes? Are we seeing just more crimes in general? In the last 18 years, what are you seeing?
I've seen, I'll tell you, one of the biggest changes I've noticed in prosecution over the last 18 years is with the drugs. Seemed that methamphetamine was the #1 drug problem for years and years. We had loads of prosecution and trouble with backyard methamphetamine labs, people who were securing dangerous chemicals and doing these volatile cooking operations and spreading methamphetamine throughout the community, which results in more property crimes, and it kind of snowballs from there. And now methamphetamine is still around, but we don't see the methamphetamine laboratories anymore. And I think the removal of, I think it was Sudafed from mass sales and making it harder to get was instrumental in changing that landscape. But something's replaced methamphetamine, as far as I can tell, and that is heroin or opiate-based narcotics. Not just heroin. I've seen a huge rise in heroin over the last few years, but also the prescription drugs that are like heroin. It seems that the abuse of those controlled substances has increased while the methamphetamine cooking has decreased. That's one of the noticeable changes in the drug landscape over the period of time. But as far as violent crime goes, I think there's always been violent crime, and it seems somewhat cyclical. And I can't say right now if there's been an increase or a decrease. It seems like goes up, it goes down, and it seems like it's always there in one form or another.
But the economy, the downturn in the economy hasn't been driving any of those numbers that you can see? In other words, people are economically distressed, depressed, and go out and steal something to put food on the table. Does that happen or not?
Well, I'm sure it happens to a certain extent. I know that some offenders who've been apprehended will explain the motivation for their committing an act of theft or forgery was to get money because they're out of work and needed the money. But I don't see that as being the norm. I think most people are hardworking people who want to earn an honest dollar, and despite being out of work, they'll try to do it the right way, not the criminal way.
We've been hearing about the Mexican drug cartels and some real challenges in Mexico. We've had on occasion heard a news story that they're moving up to the rural landscape of Oregon because it's easy to hide in some of the vast expanses of Oregon and in the forests. Is that a problem? Is it on the increase, decrease, not an issue?
The Mexican cartels, I think there is some truth to that. Earlier I was talking about how our local methamphetamine manufacturing is significantly decreased, if not non-existent these days. Well, the void has been filled by, I believe, the cartels, mainly from Mexico, who are funneling the methamphetamine up here from super labs south of the border. But the occupation of the land that you're talking about probably pertains more to the large-scale marijuana growers, which is also something that the cartels have going in Oregon. And I know that we've had a couple of cases from Yamhill County that do involve ties to both Mexican cartel for marijuana growing and for the trafficking of methamphetamine. Depending on the size of the case, some last couple I know where those links were very clear were referred up to the U.S. Attorney's Office and prosecuted federally. But we do have a presence here in Yamhill County of significant drug dealers or people with connections to significant drug dealers who are operating around here.
What should we be aware of in this race between you and your opponent in the circuit court judge race? A lot of people, they hear a lot about the other races, commissioner, sheriff, representative, congressman, whatever. And a lot of times I think people come to the ballot and circuit court judge and they haven't heard a lot about it. It's not one that is, I hate to use the word sexy, but it's not a race that you hear a lot about, the candidates getting out there and really pushing a political agenda one way or the other, because that's not their job. So what advice would you give to people that, historically had a problem in deciding who to vote for circuit court judge, and especially as you're asking them to vote for you?
Well, I think you're right. A lot of people don't know what to do on a judge race, in part because the candidates, we can't really speak about some of the issues that the other candidates can speak about. And if there's a issue or a hot topic that may come before a judge and the judge is asked to decide on it, we can't prejudge it and take a hard stance on a political issue. So I think the way to analyze your ballot when you're deciding between Ladd Wiles or my opponent is to look at who we are. And you can look to my endorsements, I think, to get a feel of my reputation in the community and the support that I have. And I think it's influential. And, I've been endorsed by many reputable people, and I have the support recently from the Sheridan Sun, so you can take that out for Willamina Wednesday to the West Valley, and remind everyone there that the Sheridan Sun had supported me. I've got the quote there from the Sun. It says, "Wiles is familiar with the criminal problems of the West Valley. He has 15 years of experience as a prosecutor dealing with cases of all magnitudes. He's knowledgeable, competent, and has earned my trust," says Marguerite Alexander of the Sheridan Sun. I think those are, when you're trying to decide who to vote for judge, you can remember, we have good endorsement from the West Valley. I also have good endorsements from organizations such as Crime Victims United of Oregon. I've also went to a candidates forum with my opponent for the Yamhill County Employees Association. It's the only forum which we were both present at, and as a result, the Employees Association, Oregon AFS CME Council 75, endorsed me for the position of judge. I have the support of elected state officials, which would include our state's Attorney General and several circuit court judges, Richard Barron, Michael Gillespie, Martin Stone, and Beth Bagley, all judges at the circuit court level who support me for judge. I have the backing of our local law enforcement. I have the support of the current sheriff, Jack Crabtree. I have support of the prior sheriff, Lee Vasquez. And I also have the support of the next sheriff. You might be thinking, well, the next sheriff is, we don't know who the next sheriff is yet. But all three of those candidates, Tim Casey, Joe Shipley, and Tim Svensson, all have endorsed me for circuit court judge. I have some good support from county officials. I have the support of both Mary Stern and Kathy George. They put out a joint quote about me, which is nice. They say, "Ladd is always thoughtful, respectful, and well prepared. He has the integrity and the experience necessary to be our county's next judge." And they're, even though they're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, they've both agree that I'm the right person for the job. I also have a great endorsement from my colleagues in the local bar. The Oregon Bar Association conducted a poll of attorneys that practice in the Yamhill County area to see who they would prefer for judge. It's referred to as the bar preference poll. And the result of that poll showed that I was favored by local attorneys by a 3-to-1 margin. 75% of the votes cast suggested I was the preferred candidate for judge. And finally, if voters are looking for a way to make up their mind, and the support of law enforcement and elected state officials and county commissioners, and the Sheridan Sun doesn't do it, there's a great editorial from the News Register, the paper here in McMinnville, where they also endorsed me for Yamhill County judge. And I'll read you sort of the last part of it. It says, "Lawrence, my opponent, is affable and outgoing, much more so than Wiles, whose demeanor is more reflective than reactive. But Lawrence also had a pair of bar disciplinary dust-ups that lend credence to concerns about his judicial fitness. Wiles is ramrod straight, with an unblemished record, highly experienced in the local judicial system, and clear in his understanding of the dynamics needed on the team of local circuit judges. He strikes us as a safer choice in this race."
Okay, Ladd, what we typically do at the end of the show at your interview segment is give you a couple of minutes to talk about just open forum. What would you like to share, either issues that you need to think need to be discussed we haven't talked about, or a closing statement as far as why you want people to vote for you? So do you want to recap?
Sure. As I started out by saying, I'm committed to this justice system, and I'm committed to the community. I've done a lot of things as a prosecutor and as an attorney that make me qualified for the job. As far as my commitment to the community, we haven't really talked about what I do outside of work. I will say that I'm fairly active with my boys and their sports and scouts and their other activities that they do. I'm active with the local Lions Club, where I am currently the vice president. I'm supposed to be sworn in as president in about a month. The local service clubs, I'm also a member of the Elks Lodge here, and I participate in many other activities that help support our community partners. And when I say community partners, I think as part of my job, I have interacted with and developed bridges and understandings with lots of local agencies to try to make Yamhill County a better place to live. I work on the Yamhill County Multidisciplinary Child Abuse Team. I'm the chair of that team right now, which, as the title suggests, is a multidisciplinary group wherein I have organized meetings with members of our local law enforcement. I have the Department of Human Services is represented, the Juvenile Department is represented, Family and Youth, Juliet's House, CASA, our school districts are involved, as is the County Victims Assistance Program, and we come together to discuss collaborative approaches to combating child abuse and see what we can do to make Yamhill County a safer place for children. And I think that those relationships and that understanding of what all of these agencies do and my continued community support for those actions shows that I care about this community. So I've got the experience to do the job. I've got the commitment to the community to keep Yamhill County a stronger place. And I believe that strong courtrooms help make strong communities. And so if you vote for me for judge, you know you'll get a qualified person that can do the job well, that cares about our community, and will help create or continue to create a strong community here in Yamhill County. Because that's what I've done in the past, that's what I've spent my career here in Yamhill County trying to do, and that's what I'll continue to do as a judge.
Do you have a Facebook page, website, or place where people can go? Of course, there's the voters pamphlet, and then we have the... we told our webmaster to put as much campaign information or candidate information on our website as we could, so you can go to election news at news@KLYC.us. But do you have a place where people can go for information?
Yes, I do. I have a website. It's www.laddwiles.com. And I also have a Facebook site. I think there's a link on my website to the Facebook, or I think you can just look up my name on Facebook and find me there.
Ladd Wiles spelled
Laddwiles.
Somewhat of an unusual name, so hopefully there's not too many Ladd Wiles there.
No.
Ladd, I know you're a busy guy. Thank you for coming in and visiting with us about why you're running for Circuit Court Judge in Yamhill County.
And thank you for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and the KLYC audience.
You are the last candidate in our candidates forum that we've been having here on the radio. We hope that you found these informative. If you missed the actual broadcast, you can go online to KLYC.us, news and election news, and you can hear all of the interviews that we've done from all of the candidates, and you can select which one you want to listen to and listen to it again if you'd like to do so. And we again ask that you please vote. So many people don't think that their vote counts and just essentially just throw it away, and it's you know, it really tugs at your heart when you realize that people have fought and died, and we've spilled a lot of blood over the years in this country. In the World War II, World War I, and the War for Independence, to fight and die for the right to decide who rules our country. We need to exercise that right, and there are people that say that if you don't exercise a right, or exercise a muscle, but in this case, if you don't exercise a right, you're going to lose it. We need to vote. Don't forget to vote when that vote by mail ballot shows up in your mailbox. Ladd, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
AM 1260 KLYC.